unnecessary intro song to totally waste your time.
So, Rick Ocasek is dead. 75 years old. Rick Ocasek, you know who that is? He's the main dude from the Cars. You've heard of them. He's dead. I met him, spent some time with him. Not personal time, not one-on-one. Anyway, I thought I've got... now that I'm getting old, I've realized I have a lot of stories about dead celebrities that I've met. I figured, if you can't tell a story about a dead celebrity, then what kind of story can you tell? And I'd rather tell stories about dead celebrities than living celebrities for some reason. I'm not sure what. Maybe it's because they can't find my story and challenge it. Dead celebrities don't argue with you. But let me tell you about Rick Ocasek. He bought me a salad one time. That's right. He bought it, went and got it, brought it back and delivered it to me. And said, "Merkley, here's your salad." Fun. Isn't that a great story? Rick Ocasek bought me a salad once. I'll give you this scene. I believe in starting out with the punchline first, and that's the punchline. So now you know how the story ends. It ends with Rick Ocasek. Well, it ends with him dying, apparently alone in New York, without his supermodel wife, who filed for divorce last year. I'll get into that too. But the way I met him was at some good friends of mine, and I'll tell you who they are when they're dead if I don't die before them. But they were making an album, back in 2000-ish, I would say. Maybe later, actually. I don't know. Might have been somewhere between 2000 and 2004. Maybe even 5. I don't know. They were making an album, and we used to just always hang out, and they invited me to come to the studio and hang out with them. Because, let's be honest, when you're making creative shit, you want a guy like me around. I'm not kidding. That's really why they kept me around. I'm good for creativity. So the only thing I'm good at, I'm not good for much. I'm really not good for much. I'm not good for helping you with a math problem. I'm not good at heavy lifting, that's for sure. But if you want to shoot the shit and keep creative juices flowing and have some fun at the same time, I'm a good guy to call. So they would often call on me for things like this. But Rick Ocasek was producing a couple of their songs at a studio in LA where Michael Jackson recorded Bad. That album, Bad. I think that's the one he recorded. Yes, and there was a room in this studio, by the way, that legend has it Michael Jackson had built specifically for Bubbles, his chimp. That's true. And I took some pictures of my friend wearing a Michael Jackson. I'm getting sidetracked, but on that trip to this, I found a leather jacket in L.A. with a big V on it. Kind of looked like a Mork from Ork. It's like Mork from Ork crossbred with Michael Jackson. And I found that jacket at a thrift store right around the corner. Like a totally well-made jacket from the 80s, And I brought it back and I made my friend wear it, and I took a picture of him in the room that Michael Jackson had built for Bubbles the Chimp. This is while Rick Ocasek is producing a couple of their songs. And Rick, well, I would say Rick and I had this wonderful conversation, but we never did. The whole time I saw him and met him, he was a very quiet guy. So everybody else would sit around being basically new money rock stars, as they might call them, you know, and living the sort of rock style life, telling jokes, having fun. And Rick Ocasek was always just this kind of quiet presence in the room. Spoke lowly, didn't have a loud voice. Very, very thin. Very thin. Amazingly thin. His hair was dyed pitch black. He dyed his eyebrows pitch black. I mean, at the time, he was only in his... I guess since he died today or last night at 75, he must have been probably, late 50s? Maybe, yeah, late 50s, probably. And I kind of liked how he looked like a person dressed up as him. He looked like somebody wearing a Rick Ocasek costume. He had the big Ray-Bans. He kept his look going the whole time. And I kind of respected that. I was concerned about how thin he was. I mean, really, people don't get much thinner without being, diagnosed with something. He was hospital type thin. I inquired, I gossiped with my friends. I said, is he always that thin? They go, I don't know. They just met him too. They don't really know him. In fact, I don't even know. The way record companies work is that when they're trying to massage a big band, and they hook people up with various producers. So on that album, they got hooked up with a number of different rock star producers, and Rick was one of them. But my interaction with Rick is one time I was surprised because, I met him in tight quarters. There wasn't a lot of other people there. It was just the band and me, and maybe the manager would come by, and then there'd be an engineer or something like that. But mostly it was just us hanging out, and a girl that I invited over. But it was mostly just us, So when I met him, I didn't expect for him to even remember my name, But one evening after long recording sessions, we were just sitting there in a room where people eat, just talking about shit. I don't know what it was. But he said, hey, I'm going to go grab some food. Does anybody want anything? And the rest of the band members put in their orders reluctantly because, you don't want to... At first it was like, I think it was, no, you don't need to get us anything, we're fine. But he's like, no, I insist, I'm just going around this place. It's this good place. And he's speaking in a low voice or whatever. And so they make their orders. And he gets to me and he goes, Merkley, what do you want? And I'm thinking, Rick Ocasek knows my name. He remembered my name. He didn't go, oh, and you, that guy, can't remember your name. He said, Merkley, what do you want? I said, I don't know, just a salad, a chicken Caesar salad or something. It was I didn't know what the kind of restaurant it was, but he goes, okay. And then he left. We kept shooting the shit for a half an hour, and Rick Ocasek came back, and he had 2 big bags. You know how when you bring bags of food back and take out in styrofoam containers, and he starts getting them out. He goes, here's yours, goes around all my rock star friend, and he gets to me and he goes, here's your chicken Caesar salad, Merkley. I didn't know what kind of dressing to get, so I got you 3 different kinds. Yeah. This is the type of story my dad would tell, It's certainly not the type of story that a famous person would tell, This is one of those famous adjacent stories that you'd tell. But I liked it. And I did like, how can you have a negative opinion about Rick Ocasek after that? One other time I did, his wife wasn't on scene then, but then one other time with this same band, he was backstage in New York after they had appeared. I accompanied them to be on Conan and Saturday Night Live. And after when they did a show there at the same time, or maybe these were two different times, but Rick Ocasek and Paulina were backstage, and I was thinking, she's so much younger than he is, and he was old, and he still had that really skinny, dark dyed hair, where the outfit doesn't match the skin tone, kind of like what I got going on. Because I now, and by the way, every time I dye my beard and dye my hair, I feel like Rick Ocasek. I think of Rick Ocasek. I think I'm getting that look, which is fine because I remember liking it back then. I remember thinking, that's pretty cool. I've always kind of liked that eccentric old person look. There was a guy named Eugene Jeleznik on TV in Salt Lake City who kept dyeing his hair. I think Roy Orbison did the same thing. It's just kind of a look. It's kind of, I have to say that there is a certain patheticness to it that I like. There's a certain charm, and of course now you're going to realize how contrived I am about everything, but that's fine. But I like that contrived sort of how when people start looking like themselves in a costume. I'm not so big on the plastic surgery. That part goes a little too far. But when people age, but somehow keep their old uniform on, like I really like how Aerosmith they all dye their hair and have it done by really expensive hairstylist, and now they, as a nod to their age, they're leaving one gray streak. I kind of like that shit. It's there's a certain message of mortality in it that I find really kind of profound. And I remember thinking that about Rick Ocasek. I remember feeling that was profound, that he looked like an old man dressed up as his former self. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know if you guys could know what I'm talking about, but it rides the line, which I love so much in music and art, where you don't know whether you're supposed to laugh or cry. I think that's the most wonderful line to edge in life. Humor. The best jokes are always so painfully true, where the only other option is to cry, but instead you have fun with it and you laugh. And I feel that way about especially old celebrities that dress up like their former young selves. But that's not just them though either. Like I love an old black guy going down the street and he's still wearing his duds from the 70s, and he's dyeing his beard and shining his car. I love that stuff. It is pathetic, but so wonderfully so. And the older I get, the more I realize that it is fun to do it. It's just fun to do it. So that's my story about Rick Ocasek. And I may as well I met a lot of famous people through this band. On tour in Europe, they were touring around and doing festival shows, and at one of these particular festival shows, David Bowie was playing, and this band was big fans of David Bowie. Who isn't? Blah, blah, blah. Even if they were or weren't, I don't know. We didn't talk about that part very much, but they finished their set, and we all got on golf carts to race over to see David Bowie's set. One of the other producers on that same record was a guy who played keyboards for David Bowie for years, and so he was playing keyboards for David Bowie on this tour as well. So on that tour, I was wearing vintage suits all the time, actual vintage suits. This is before I had all my suits made for me in Vietnam. But one of the things about vintage suits is they have low crotches. They have low crotches, and threads weaken over time. So anybody that has worn a lot of old vintage suits has split their pants a time or two. And no different for me. Earlier that day, I had split my pants, and I didn't have any other pants to wear. I was on the last of my pants. So I had split pants. And not only that, but I had lime green underwear that I bought. I found a whole pack of them, like a pack of 10 lime green underwear at a thrift store. Brand new, overstocked. Nobody wants them. So I got them all for like $1. And I thought, oh, this would be funny. I like these lime green underwear. Of course, when you split your pants, it becomes very apparent to everybody. Because peeking out, even if you have a suit jacket on, which I did, if the wind caught it right, your pants would slip open. Anyway, so we race over to to watch David Bowie, and the rest of the band is kind of at the entrance to the backstage. Not backstage, but behind the stage, not in the enclosure of the stage. And they're talking to their friend, David Bowie's keyboard player, who produced their album. And at this time, I made myself useful on that tour by documenting it with a camera, and I'm filming them or whatever. And I film as much as their conversation as I can. I get bored with it, and I put my camera down, but I'm not going to butt into their conversation. But from behind me, this is before they go on stage. Right from behind me, I hear this voice, and it's unmistakably David Bowie. And he says something to the effect of, "Excuse me, sir, I don't know if you've noticed, but it seems you've split your pants." And I turned around, and there was David Bowie talking to me. I said, "Yeah, vintage suits, what you gonna do?" And he said, "I think it's best to just enjoy the breeze." Smiled, gave me like a charming face, patted me on the back a little bit. Kind of one of these fashion victim to fashion victim kind of a things. Like acknowledge that, oh yeah, I know about stuff like that. Nobody heard it. They were talking to him, and he just snuck right past me after he said that. And they headed out. I don't even think the band got to talk to David Bowie. I think he scooted right past because they were in conversation with their friend, the keyboard player, and he went on the stage, and I just had that one little private moment with David Bowie. And by the way, this is the funny thing too, is that whole day I had split pants, and I was literally walking. I think it was in Norway, and I was walking around Norway that entire day with split pants, just going, well, what am I going to do? I was busy. We were going from place to place. I didn't have time to sit down with a needle and thread and stitch it up. And I just figured, well, they're baggy enough. Maybe most people won't notice. But not one person that entire day noticed the split in my pants. Or if they did, they didn't say anything. And the only person who said anything was David Bowie, and it's the only thing he said. I wish I could do his accent. I can kind of sing like him if I'm alone in my car, but I won't try to do it now. But yeah. "Excuse me, sir. It seems you have split your pants. Vintage suits, what you gonna do? I think it's best to just enjoy the breeze." That's my David Bowie story. Who I also met through that band. Mark McGrath, he's not dead. I can't tell a story about him. Who else is dead? Robin Williams. I didn't meet Robin Williams through this band, though. I met him through just being in San Francisco. In San Francisco, especially when I first moved here. I moved here. I bought my house in 97, moved here in the spring of 98. And right after I was here, I think it was probably 99 or 2000, I started kind of running into Robin Williams in different places. Not like really running into him, but he'd be at a party. I'd go to another party, and then he'd be there. And but the story that's most fun for me is that I was at Alamo Square Park, which is the park right up the street from my house. When you see that picture of San Francisco on the beginning of Full House that has the five painted ladies with the city in the background, that park is 2 blocks north of me, and directly north of me. It's 2 blocks directly north of me. And so I would take my dog Chico there for a walk. I could walk downhill and go to the regular dog park. But that means my way home, I'd have to walk uphill. So at that time, I was thinking, I think downhill is the better thing to do on the way home. So I would go to that park and take Chico. Well, this particular day, I was taking Chico to the park. And I noticed a bunch of, film trailers and whatever. And I noticed the park looked a lot different. There was like all these strange little chess tables set up in the park, And then it became quickly clear not quickly, actually. I was going, what's going on here? And then there's a little group hanging out. And I look, and there's some lights hooked up, and I thought, okay, they're making a movie here. But as soon as I looked through the crowd, through all the movie crowd, near the lights, I see a face looking directly at me, pointing at me, and doing the thumbs up. And I look, and I look behind me. I did one of those silly movie things, like, is he talking to me? And he goes, points at me, and he goes, thumbs up again. And, oh, wait, holy fuck, this is going to be a great little tie-in. And I'm thinking, who, me? I look, and he goes, yeah, you, thumbs up. And I realize it's Robin Williams. He was looking out through a crowd. He had seen me. Now, my outfit at the time was, and I think it might be this exact same suit that split in Europe. God damn it, why didn't I never think of this before? If it wasn't, it was one of the suits that I had in Europe. But I was wearing a green sharkskin suit with an orange shirt and bright orange Reeboks. Then I'd cover the Reebok logo with that label tape that you'd shoot out of the gun, and it said asshole in my shoes. He couldn't see that, though. But he could see that I was wearing a green sharkskin suit with an orange shirt and orange shoes, right? And some funny colored socks. This was like, come on. Like I said, it probably wasn't even year 2000 yet. And he was pointing at me and doing thumbs up. Oh, I was also wearing some yellow Ray-Ban, aviator type glasses. So I looked pretty fucking cool, right? My hair was all big and floppy. And so I got approval from Robin Williams from a distance, right? And I'm thinking, that's pretty cool. Robin Williams gave me props on my look just while I was walking my dog, Chico, at the park. And somebody can look up this later, but only a few days later, literally a few days later, maybe a week later tops, Robin Williams is on Conan. And, drumroll please, guess what he was wearing? Basically the exact outfit that I was wearing. I think maybe one of the colors was different, but it was a sharkskin suit with a brightly colored shirt and matching shoes. He basically totally stole my vibe. So, that's fun. That was fun for me. I told a couple other people, but it's kind of another one of those, kind of got to be there, kind of had to be there, Rob Williams was cool, too. He was always cool. Every time I ran into him after that, I think that was my first encounter with Rob Williams. And then I went to a rap party of his, and he was totally sweet and engaging. And I think I wanted to mention the Conan story, but then felt that I never did, I met him some other time at some other place. Also, equally, every single time I met Robin Williams, and he's known for these stories. Everybody that's met him would probably tell you the same story, but he stops the world and he engages directly with you. And, there's no sense that he wants to get out of there. He's absolutely interested in entertaining whoever's in front of him in kind of a magnanimous kind of way, like it never seemed to me to be for him. You know what I mean? Like some comedians get up there and they want all the laughs for them. And then other comedians, like Robin Williams especially, seem like a guy who was in service to his audience. Which is maybe why he's was known as a joke thief at certain times, but he really wanted to make people laugh, and I really think he wanted to just make people happy. I got that vibe from him entirely, and from that very first time, like there was no reason why he would need to point across the park at a stranger in San Francisco, at a distance of probably 35, 40 yards, and give the thumbs up. He didn't have to do that, and he did. Anyway, that's a silly story. It's another dead celebrity story. I was sad about Robin Williams. That was probably one of the saddest stories of all of them. I remember the day he died. For some reason, I burst out into tears. I surprised myself because I wasn't a huge fan of his comedy. I was as a kid. I loved Mork. Look how Mork ties back in. This is weird. Okay, I didn't plan this, but yeah, that's weird. He ties back into that first story I told about the jacket. Anyway, Mork was a big part of my life. I thought he was really cool, but, a little bit too much in the comedy department for me, as far as his routines, a little too manic. Loved it as an idea, but sometimes you just be like, settle down. But for some reason, the day when I found out he died and that he committed suicide, it really just fucked me up. Like, I had a really good, long, weird cry that I didn't even know why. It just came out of nowhere. I hadn't cried like that for anybody. It was like the first big, deep cry I had for years. It came out of the blue. Really strange. But yeah, I don't think I was alone there. I think a lot of people felt that way that day. Nothing sadder than when the clown dies, a guy who's there to make you laugh. That's the worst. I should probably end my stories there, but I may as well talk about Prince too, since we're talking about dead celebrities. Prince is another guy who, this is a day. So same band, right? They're coming up to receive a BAMI Award, which is the Bay Area Music Award. And I live here, so every time they come into the Bay Area, we'd usually powwow at my house and have a little drinking party or whatever to get ready. I think we probably did that on this day. I don't know. But we went to the Bay Area Music Awards, and I gave one of the guys some coaching on what he could do to be funny when he was accepting the award. And he did it, and that was fun. And then when we were walking around the place in Oakland, I can't remember which place it was, but where the event was held, I'm an idiot. I was pretty new to drinking there, and I had some Long Island iced teas, and you know how strong those things are. But they asked me to hold the award as we walked around, and I, of course, gladly did so. I thought it was fun, looking like, if you're going to be part of an entourage, you may as well be the one holding the trophy. Do you know what I mean? So I held the trophy. We got in the limousines, and we went to another party at is it Billy Joe? From Green Day. I went to his house. I met the guys from POD, who I didn't really know, but they were nice. But we were all about ready to go home, and then all of a sudden a call comes over from Prince. Turns out he's in town doing a show in Oakland that same day. We couldn't make it to that because it was the Bay Area Music Awards, but he was having a late night surprise party or a jam at the Fillmore, right? And so everybody goes, okay, that's what we're going to do. And we continue to get drunk. We're drunk in the limousines. It's like all foggy because the Long Island iced teas kept happening. We probably arrived at the Fillmore at 2 a.m., right? And drunk. All of us are drunk. And that's when I meet Prince. We got there between the people hadn't been let in yet. The general public, I guess, by the way, I'm trusting my drunken memory from this, but from what I remember, the public wasn't in the building yet, and Prince was behind the control desk at the back of the room, right? And that's where I was introduced to him by one of my rock star friends. And we had and he was just a pleasant little guy. I couldn't tell you what we said. We just had a nice little exchange. And that was that. And then we went and got more drinks at the Fillmore. And it took forever for him to take stage. I mean, forever. It was probably 4 o'clock in the morning. And by that time, I was just drunk. And I think it was my dream to meet Prince, you know? Well, not really. I didn't have dreams about that. But, like, he was one of my favorite artists of all time. And I'm thinking, okay, well, this is where it gets really weird, where you're meeting one of your, formative years heroes. And I'm totally wasted and tired in the middle of the night, you know? So he got on, did one song, and I was too tired. I couldn't stay, and so I walked home. But that's not the real story. The better story of Prince is that one time in L.A., I was with the same band, and at that time, Prince, I think it was the same album, was collaborating with them. And I have a dirt story to tell, but I won't tell about this band because they have to die first before I tell that story. But the band didn't get along with Prince. But anyway, we're driving around in some limo in L.A., and a call comes through, and it's Prince is in L.A., and he wants to hang out with this band, right? And the band looks around, and one of the guys in the band, the bass player from the band, was like, oh, no, we can't hang out with him tonight. And because they didn't like that he was a Bible thumper. And he was a real Bible thumper. And he goes, especially because Merkley's here. He's kind of giving me shit. I'm like, what? You can't cock-block me from Prince. But the reason why he said that is because I have always been, as anybody who's ever met me, I've always been honest with my opinions about things. And I had already told these people my opinions about Prince, because we had discussed their non-fun relationship with Prince, they didn't really enjoy. We had discussed it, and I was like, I had this whole theory that Prince was fucked up because of what happened to his baby that was born, deformed and died a few days later. Because that's when the big switch happened. That's when Prince turned from the old Prince to the new Prince, to the preachy Prince. And when Larry Graham from Graham Central Station and the Sly and the Family Stone, when he came in with the Jehovah's Witness stuff, that's where it all came. And I was like, I know what happened. Prince thought God was punishing him for being Prince. When his baby was born and died, I believe my psychoanalysis of the whole situation was that Prince felt like God was punishing him, that he felt like it was karmic, that God was saying, this is what you get for this and this and that. This is payback. And that's when Prince turned religious. That's when Larry Graham came in and saved the day as the big brother. So I'd already discussed this with the band. And by the way, I had discussed the same thing with Carmen Electra. So it gets weird there too. I met her. She's not dead, so I'll keep her story until she's dead. But I had discussed it with her, and I won't tell you what she thought about my theory. But anyway, when Prince was calling to hang out, he was in L.A., come to this. And Prince, I guess, is known for this. When he comes into town, he wants to get all his friends together, and he hangs out late. He doesn't even drink and stuff, or didn't, but he still wanted to hang out. He was a marvelous host. But I got cock-blocked because the bass player looks at me, and he's like, no, we can't hang out with Merkley there. And I could tell he was worried. He was worried that I would talk to Prince about my theory, which I wouldn't have, I don't think, unless I would have had the opportunity. If he would have Bible thumped with me, and there's a high chance he would have, because of all the numerous Prince stories I have, everybody that knows him has told me stories of his Bible thumping. It's very well known. He likes to get people around in these late night parties, lay down the law, and start Bible thumping and preaching. And everybody there knew that if he would have done that to me, I would have pushed back with my theory. And I would have, absolutely without a doubt, if the opportunity would come up. And it probably would have. So instead of hanging out with them, they just made up some excuse. They could have just kicked me out. They probably could have just said, hey, Merkley, you can't come. You're too much of a liability here. But no, instead, the fact is they didn't really want to hang out with them anyway. Two of my friends in that situation were like me. They're rational atheists, and that's why we got along so well, And they were big fans of him anyway, after having worked with him. So anyway, that was my getting cock-blocked. That was the time I should have actually had quality time with Prince, but my own inability to keep my yap shut cock-blocked me from being able to hang out with Prince. And no big deal anyway, because, gosh, just that concert, his final tour, I went to that with a friend of mine, and I had front row seats, and I walked around and I watched him as a 57-year-old man, and I just thought, this isn't good. This guy's not on a good path. I literally got really depressed, at that show. And I kept just walking around the auditorium rather than sitting there watching him because it was making me really depressed. I was thinking, this man is not aging. He's refusing to age. Like, when you hear those lyrics, those hip-thrusting lyrics, Little Red Corvette on a piano, it's like, no, those songs were great. He spoke for us, our sexual frustration when we were young. They're not lyrics that sound good coming out of a piano and a voice, And by the way, that was the night I kind of decided that I wanted to commit to just piano and voice, because it was that night where I thought, if a song doesn't work with just piano and voice sang by an old man, then I don't want to have any part of it, because I was kind of worried and embarrassed for Prince in that moment, And I know that's gross, and I know it's sanctimonious, It is. I admit it. But I'm not going to lie, that's how I felt when I was watching him sing. And then just a few weeks later, kaput. Died in an elevator, ironically. No one's going to let the elevator take us down. Oh no, let's go. Let's go crazy. And he died in an elevator. Alone. Sounds like Rick Ocasek died alone too. I don't know if David Bowie died alone. Robin Williams died alone. God, how lonely is that? All these lonely deaths. Everybody's lonely when they die, right? Or not really. I think some people are die in a room filled with loved ones. My stepdad died that way. But you hear all these lonely deaths of famous people. And of course, I've already told the stories about how fame is a disease and blah, blah, blah. And it is. It is a disease. We get a lot of great things from these artists, but it comes at a cost to them. And probably all of us. I don't know. It's weird that I have this podcast filed under comedy. They don't give you very many options when putting your podcast in a comedy. The philosophy category seemed a little bit too weighty, but comedy seems really stupid after I tell stories like this about dead comedians and rock stars. Anyway, there you go. There's four stories of dead icons. I guess Rick isn't an icon, but he sure was a fun guy. Sure was. Cars, definitely a fun band. You have bad memories of Cars music? No, you don't. You have good memories. I don't even care if you didn't like them. You have good memories about the Cars. And probably good memories about all those people I just told stories, Anyway, That's all. Thanks for listening.